are live. Excellent. Hello and welcome to today's webcast Q&A series. My name is Warren Kus and I'm the High Brass Product Specialist for Buffet Crampon USA. We are here and joined with Kelly Langenberg. She is a Huntswear artist and we are very, very glad to have her. And we're going to be talking about a few different things, but hopefully I'll let her chime in here. This is uh, a great time for us to really connect with everyone, and the Rhapsody Live series and everything that we've been putting together here for you on Facebook is for your entertainment and also to give you some connectivity to our artists, some of the people inside of our company here at Buffet Crampon. And as we let people kind of commune, I'll let everything happen here organically, of course. But Kelly, hello, and welcome to today's webcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today, Warren. I'm happy to have this portal to reach out to the world today.
Absolutely, yeah. No, we're very happy to have you. And today's are pretty important for everyone in normal in regular times. Nonetheless, while we're dealing with a pandemic, but very efficient practice habits is very important. That's the name of today's webcast. So for sure, we would like to delve into a lot of that. But first, I just wanted to ask a few questions for you that maybe some of our listeners and viewers might want to know uh, a little bit more about Kelly. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, and really, I want to hear about some of the cool groups that you play in. So I know you have a few really cool stories. So I'll let you take the reins.
Cool stories. I have a lot of cool stories. Well, yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I feel like at any time in my life, and this is probably really similar for a lot of artists, there are like 15 different irons in the fire. So the one thing that I have struggled with, especially with having more time lately because of the inability to be able to perform, is like which thing am I going to work on right now? So I have lots of different things that I'm always working on at any given time. I have books that I just like write things down in all the time. I always have paper with me and a couple of fancy pens as well. So I'm constantly thinking about what I want to be working on and what my next project is. So motivation has never really been an issue for me before, but finding the time to get everything done has been more of a challenge. So in that way, COVID has been a blessing. But I've really been focused lately. I'm in my second year of doctoral work at the University of Illinois, and just really trying to keep that my primary focus right now. I just want to get that done. It has been a lifelong dream for me to have a terminal degree, and I took a lot of time off in between my master's and starting my doctorate, like more than 15 years. So a lot of wonderful stuff happened in that time, but now I realize like this is something that's moved really to the apex of my list of to-dos. So that is where I've been really focused lately. And also just thinking about what can we as artists contribute right now to our communities, and what good can we do when we're not really able to be in front of an audience. And so that has led to a lot of creative thought as well. Is just how can I connect with other musicians? How can I continue to contribute to my field? How can my chamber groups be relevant? And so there have been a lot of conversations and a lot of effort in that front as well. So I play in the Alloy Horn Quartet. And one thing that we worked on this summer was we decided to design our own warm-ups based on like canon classical repertoire. So we did an entire set of warm-ups based on like the solo from Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. So we picked several different pieces that we just like to play and we enjoy, we miss. and took some opportunities to just do some composing ourselves. And those were really fun collaborative projects. And we're hoping to present some of those in a bigger format a little bit further down the road. So that's something that we had been working on, and actually giving a couple of like Zoom presentations coming up for us as well. One next month, actually, at Roosevelt University. And one of the things we'll be discussing there is just how do we stay relevant as chamber ensemble artists in this time. So that's one thing that the Horn Quartet has coming up. Um, I also play in the Alliance Brass Quintet. And the brass quintet is actually, we've still been getting a lot of stuff done. We've even done some recording in the meantime. So that's been fun. We've also all been toying around with, you've probably seen like these video releases of like 5 people in 5 different rooms, and they each get their little fifth of the screen trying, and we've all recorded things separately and then tried to put it all together. And so that's been frustrating at times, but also it's forced me to hone some of my skills, because I had no video editing skills prior to the middle of March. So that was kind of a fun experience for me to work on. Glad to get some new skills out of that. And one thing that we have coming up is we're performing for and leading a masterclass with the Sopras Matthias Festival. This is a new to me festival. It's a brass festival that's happening in Brazil the second weekend of October. And over 90% of the faculty are folks who identify as female. So we're really excited to be part of this brand new festival. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be submitting some pieces that they're going to show, like recordings, and then we're also going to be giving a live component to a masterclass as a brass quintet. So that's fun. I'm glad people are figuring out how we can still connect and learn together, even though we can't really be together. I would love to go like to Brazil someday. It's been another dream to go, like really any place south of the US border would be a super ton of fun. So those are some things I've been working on with my chamber groups, and then working on some things individually as well. Like with my doctoral research, a couple of things that I'm really interested right now is helping my friends and colleagues who are Black and brown, just bringing those careers, highlighting and learning about their experience that maybe I have been blinded by as being a white educator. So that's something I'm really interested in. I want to learn more about that. I feel like I have a couple of blind spots in my education that I feel like I can really work on as well. So just educating myself about what these contributions are, finding that repertoire and making it part of my repertoire so I can share. There's so much good music out there by underrepresented composers that doesn't get performed because it's just not part of our regular literature, and it needs to be. So that's something I'm working on right now. And one final thing, I'm sorry, Warren, I had no idea I had so many answers to this question. One final thing that I'm really interested in is that intersection of chamber music and social justice issues. So I feel like there's been so much conversation lately about the elitism and classism we find particularly in orchestral music, but in classical music performance. And I feel like that music is still music that is beloved by me and many people. But what are some ways that we as musicians can make that music mean something right now? In Black Lives Matter, in the Me Too movement, in bringing social change. So that idea, just that, it's a really big raw idea in my mind right now. But just really trying to think about how can I take these things that I am so passionate about and this music that I love so much and find a way to combine them in a way that brings progress to my community. So. Okay, to very quickly and in as few words as possible answer your question.
No,
That's
that was
kind of what I've been working on lately.
no, that was beautifully said. A lot of really well deeper than normal answers to those kinds of questions, and I think the right feeling and passion are going in the right directions. You know, so that's fantastic. Um, I love the idea, and also sorry. Before I move on, congratulations for going into your second year of your doctoral studies. That's really an accomplishment
I'd
for
love
me.
to say that I feel like I'm like closer to the end, but I feel like the coursework is really only the beginning. It's
Yeah.
like there's a lot more on the other side of that.
Well, it seems like a lot of what you're researching and doing is going to be part of what you're already involved in. So would be really interested to see how that unfolds for you. So I look forward to hearing a lot of that in the future from you and from the community that you're surrounded with. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
we're also, Warren, fellow Floridians now because I recently moved from Chicago
that's right.
to the Florida Panhandle. So I got to experience my first hurricane over the week. But
Welcome to
also,
sunny Florida. Yeah.
yeah, it's been humid. They should call it humid Florida, really. They should call it humid Florida. But coming here, we're just outside of Destin, which is like a big tourist area. But the rest of the community around here is like this is the seventh fastest growing county in the United States. But the services and things that are available for the residents here just aren't catching up. Like I tried to get my kids in a dance class and it's waitlisted until the end of October. And it's I'm just finding that they're potentially right here where I am in this little community. There is a need for musicians and there is a need for more culture. And so I think wherever you go, what you seek, you can find. And I'm like I love Florida so far, and I know I'm gonna love it even more when it's January. but but I'm also finding like I feel like there's so much potential here to just like really grow personally as a musician and do the things that are important to me, which is like bring communities together through music. So I'm really excited about those prospects. But again, I have to just stay really focused on my doctoral work right now because I really want to get that done and out of the way.
Excellent. Yeah. That's also beautiful and welcome to Florida, of course. So that's great. Hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of each other once everything kind of settles down for the from the
Oh, well,
pandemic. Yeah.
Florida's still pretty big. I feel like you're still several hours
Yeah,
away.
we're probably still about 8 hours away from each other, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's just so crazy.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
state. So going into a few things, I know you have some things to show us and present and talk to us about some practice habits. So let's kind of get into that. Um, before before I really do that, I just want one small question, and you can answer it how you feel. But I wanted to go back in time and find out how you got introduced to Hoyer. I mean, we are presenting under the Hans Hoyer umbrella here, and you know, Buffet Crampon, of course, but obviously, Hans Hoyer, this is an 801 beside me, so I know that's what you are more destined and have been used to for the last, oh goodness, at least 8 years, at least in my memory. So um, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your experience with Hoyer and yeah, how you got introduced to the family.
Sure. I am virtually and literally surrounded by Hoyer horns. I own three of them myself, and then there's one on either side of me right now. My 801 sitting right back there. Yeah. How was I introduced? Well, I was playing with I think I was first introduced to Hoyer. I met someone who worked for the company while I was playing with a brass quintet at a trumpet competition someplace on the East Coast. And yeah, it's a little bit of a mystery. I've actually had other people ask me this question as well, like how did this affiliation begin? And I'm like, I don't. But really, the first thing I remember is like talking to you on the phone in my backyard, like, and we were just kind of talking through the instruments and the products. But I I got this horn. I think I got my Hoyer. You said 8 years, but I think it was 2014. I think that's when I got it. But
Okay.
yeah, and before then, it had just been kind of like, you play. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit too, but you play one horn and then like you fall out of love with it or you grow out of it or whatever it is. People have a lot of reasons. They just want another horn for whatever reason. People seem to change horns every couple years. And I was no different. I had maybe a new horn every 4 years or so, and I bought this horn. Now I have bought a few other Hoyers since I got this Hoyer, but that is my brand. And I do my playing is I do chamber music, I do brass quintet, I do horn quartet, I've done woodwind quintet, I do horn choir, and I do an awful lot of orchestra freelancing. And if I have one horn like my 801 that just meets all of those needs, that just makes my life so much better. That I don't have to carry around two horns or play a different horn for this gig this week and a different horn for that gig that week. Like it's so perfect. I can get so much color out of it, and I can get the lightness that I need or the depth that I need depending on the group that I am playing with. So I just appreciate that about my instrument.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I'm sorry I did say 8 years, but I think you're right. It's probably closer to six. So yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that's
I think
great.
so.
Um, we haven't had a lot of questions yet, but there's a lot of people like tuning in and talking in terms of just introducing themselves, telling us where they're from. So hello to some of our colleagues. Donnie Todd, who runs our Southeast division for sales, and also our showroom manager up in New York. She's also Lori Orr saying hi from New York City.
Good
Uh,
afternoon. I remember meeting her, I think, when I was there a couple of years ago.
yeah, she's great. You know, she does all the appointments and helps us run our showroom and showcases a lot of those instruments from clarinets to flutes to tubas to horns, of course. So it was really great. So just as a reminder, we're about to get into some of the practice techniques and everything that Kelly has to offer everyone listening. But everyone listening, if you have any questions, if you have any comments or any, it doesn't have to necessarily be what we're talking about now, but any questions for us, for Kelly, please just ask away in the comments section. So
Yes, please do. Okay. Warren, I just set up the share screen. Can you let me know? Is it like taking up the full screen?
I'm not seeing it, but I think, yeah, it looks like it's working perfectly.
All right. All right. Wonderful. Well, through the course of well, last year, through my first year of being a full time student, once again, after so many years off, I've had to spend a lot of time thinking about how to learn. When I was a student the first time around, straight out of high school, I did not have twins or a husband or the requirements that are brought on by employment. And I didn't have to be maybe so restricted about my study habits or my practice habits. I just had a lot more time to do what I wanted to do with it and use it the way I wanted to. And this time around, that's just not been the case. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about how to do the things I have to do more efficiently and more effectively with the time that I have. So that's kind of where this comes from. Also, about 2 years ago, I attended a master class that a trumpet player gave, heaven forbid, Tom Hooten. And I think he's pretty inspiring to everyone, though, not just trumpet players. But what he said it was like I heard it at a time that I really needed to hear what he had to offer. And so much of what he talked about just clicked and resonated with me. And I've never don't think I've ever told him what a big impact it had on me. It was just like 1 hour at a student masterclass that I was just attending because I wasn't teaching at that time. So many nuggets and bits of knowledge that I took with me and have like just continued to gnaw on in my head and think about. So um, I've got to credit him with kind of getting this idea rolling for me because he has a lot of this stuff figured out already, a lot of ideas about practicing. So I've been thinking a lot about thinking and about learning. Turns out there's a word for that. It's called metacognition. And that's when you think about the way that you think or you think about the way that you learn. And a lot of these ideas can be translated easily from learning a subject to learning an instrument. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and that I feel like so many of my goals as an applied instructor of horn is to teach my students how to think or learn their instrument on their own. You know, you get this luxury of having a private teacher who can kind of coach you through for maybe 6 years, and then after that you may not get regular lessons. So it's important that you teach yourself how to learn in that time that you have. So, okay, so that's a little background about this. Um, I think maybe the title is just like a tiny bit misleading, but if I was going to give it a different title, this might be the title I would give it: Developing Learning Habits That Inform Effective Practice Techniques. But that sounds like extremely academic to me. It's not very catchy. So I think like practice design is probably like a good title for what we're going to talk about today. And just taking the concepts that have been studied by educators for years and years and years, some of them since like the 50s, and how do they apply to being more effective and efficient in the practice room. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so you've maybe seen this or heard of this before. We often see this same diagram in the shape of a pyramid. So you read this taxonomy from the bottom to the top. And this is by Dr. Benjamin Bloom, called the Taxonomy of Learning Domains, although it's much more commonly just known as Bloom's taxonomy. There's no like special science or certificate that you need to understand what this is saying. It's very simple and very matter of fact that there are different cognate areas to the way that we learn something. I think one of the challenges for us musicians is that we get caught somewhere in the middle of this and we don't take time to really build our pyramid structure from the bottom and then end with creating. We always want to do something that's a little bit closer to the top without spending enough time in the area at the bottom. But when we learn to use the taxonomy effectively, we are able to transfer and retain what we do from day to day in the practice room. So I know a couple years ago there was a lot of content going around by like, why do we feel like we're starting over every day when we start practicing? And it might just be that we're not building up, building that pyramid the right way. So I'm not going to go through all the definitions for these different taxonomies right now, but I do want to reiterate that we read those from the bottom to the top. So level 1, remembering; level 2, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and finally, creating. So let's look now at how that could possibly be used or translated in a practice room setting, or I'm gonna generally use the example of like you get a new piece of music. And I just had a brand new freshman student of mine ask me, send me an email because I had assigned him the Beethoven Horn Sonata to work on. And he was just a very honest, thoughtful email. And he said, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to learn this. And especially for those musicians who find it somewhat natural, or it feels natural to them, and things kind of come, maybe seem like they come a little bit easier to those people. Um, when it comes time to really get down and figure out how to learn something, those skills are a little dull. So this will help. And I actually showed him this, and I think it would be really fabulous to share with your students, or to keep this taxonomy, like print it out and keep it in your practice journal or inside your music folder, because it will help you figure out, like, set better goals. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but how does this apply to the way that we practice? Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to we're learning a brand new piece of music. So we're starting at the bottom with step one, which is remembering. Okay, before you even play a note or try to play a note, you need to know what all the terms in your music translate to. You need any fingerings, any trill fingerings or trick fingerings. You need to know all of the rhythms. Find the repeats, determine the form of the piece, and Google the composer and the piece. And also, especially in this time of Zoom lessons, add measure numbers. It will help you all save time when you're teaching. Step two, understanding. Play through the piece and aim for an accurate reading of what is on the page. Compare recordings that you can find. Determine where you'll take breaths, your phrasing. Also look through the music to determine where your loudest spots and softest spots are. Applying. Sing the music. Choose your articulations. Make sure you're choosing a variety of articulations. Experiment with different phrasing ideas. Draw a picture while listening to the piece of music. Doodle. Ask other people about their experience playing the piece that you're working on. Here's one that I like to do, and we'll get into why I like to do this later. Write the music out by hand. I mean, like, literally grab a piece of staff paper and a pencil and write your solo out. Write it in with all of the dynamics, with all the words, with all of your slur lines, everything. Just thoroughly write the piece of music out, which for a learner like me is one of the very, very best ways to mentally capture what is on the page. Step four, analyze. This is where you get to use some of that music theory. What part of the chord are you? Study the score. Apply traditional performance practice against your own interpretation. How does your line weave or intertwine with the accompaniment? What is your musical storyline? Who are the characters that you're performing about? And what does this piece mean to you? Those things are really important to your overall performance. And I'll just stop here to share a personal story. I was in a lesson working on N4A, which is like one of the standard pieces of horn repertoire, and I was getting ready to play it on my recital. And my teacher, I know that I should have done this, but my teacher stopped me and he was like, well, what is this about right here in this one section? It was like the music had clearly changed from like being hunting style of music to being like church music. It was like in a mode or something. I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. And it was like, in a kind way, shame on you for not having done your work and really figuring out what this piece means to you. And you can look at the music by Botza. It felt a little bit dated to me, and it could be about a hunter and it could be about a cathedral, but I wanted a more modern interpretation of it because, like I said, I'm concerned. I want the music that I love to be relevant to the social concerns that I have. So I did a little bit of research and I constructed this entire story about N4A by Botza. No, it wasn't about a forest at all. It was about a school, and it was about the story of Daisy Bates and the Little Rock Nine. And this was at the time where we were trying to integrate schools. And where I was really able to piece this story together was where the Black students went to the white school 3 weeks in a row trying to get into the school, and they would not let the students into the school. And there are three calls in the boatsa right after the opening, before it leads into the church cathedral section. And I was able to piece together this event that happened in the civil rights era with a piece of music that I like, and the performance had so much more meaning to me and depth because it was about something that I care about, and not about some like generic hunter in a forest. And like that's a great story too, and that provides a lot of color and visuals mentally. But I really wanted it to be about something that I feel something about. So that's one example of analyzing, and you can take that wherever you want with it. I'm interested in history, and I'm interested particularly in women's history. But whatever interest you have, maybe your interest is archery, or your interest is horses. Like you can find ways to connect these different silos of interest that you have to create a product that is uniquely yours.
That's a one. I'm gonna cut you off just a second, but that's a wonderful story, and I have a very similar experience that I just wanted to kind of share. Mine is not that in depth, not even in the slightest. But before I do, we had one comment that said maybe your mic is not quite high enough in terms of volume. They're just having a little bit of a problem hearing you. I don't know. It's probably something you could probably you have a similar like mic to what.
I had the gain turned down to my like horn playing
Oh, there we
main
go.
level. Is that better? I can turn it up even more. So you just give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down if it's that I'm worried it's too loud now. But
A happy medium would probably be great, but that's much better, at least on our end, and I
okay.
assume it will be on there. So cool. No, but back to the experience that we had. I did similar thing. Walked into a lesson. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some Scarlatti aria that I was playing at that point, or practicing or working on. And I've been working on it for a couple of weeks, so it wasn't like a huge like sight reading concept, right? But and it wasn't terribly difficult either. But um, my teacher turns to me, has me, and just like kind of shakes his head and says, "Do you know who you're playing with when you do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, obviously it's made for orchestra and voice, right?" So I'm like, "Okay, so do you know what the words to the aria?" And it's like, "Well, they're in Italian, so no, don't know the particular like dictation you're talking about like this." And I'm like, "No, I mean, have you translated? Do you know the story of this aria?" And, like really quite embarrassed because I was in my junior or senior year at that point, and completely just taken aback because at that point I was kind of transitioning from playing jazz to doing more classical trained work, and so obviously for all the standards, you know the lyrics, you know the words, and you know the story of that tune based off of it, right? And it didn't even occur to me that if there were lyrics that I should like find out what that story is in a different genre of music. So very embarrassing story, and has not happened since. I will tell you that.
Well, I'm glad that happened to you when you were like 20 instead of when you were 40. So there's
Well,
that.
I'm still guilty of it now, and I will always go back to that moment. I'm like, yep, you didn't do your homework, and a lot of that is it. So anyway, tying back into a lot of this, a lot of us go to that creativity part of it, right? And forget about all the foundation of that pyramid. I love the visual aspect of it, so I'll let you continue. That's really great. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Like as musicians and even as teachers, we want to start someplace in the like analyzing area. And that there's so much work left undone when we start too far up on the list, right? Getting down Yeah. It's always like sometimes we're a little too focused on the creating and performing, and that some of the real joy of what we do is just getting that total and complete understanding of what we're doing. That makes it so much more rewarding, because as we know, like practicing is not always fun. Like it's not like I would be really honest about that. Like sometimes it's not fun at all. Sometimes you have to force yourself to do it, but it's the challenge that's really attractive, and the reward of improving. So, okay, so analyzing, what does this piece mean to you? Um, Level five, evaluating. This would be like playing for master classes, defending your musical choices, asking your friends and colleagues for honest feedback about your playing, record yourself and write comments. And then this might be kind of an interesting idea is like design your own rubric for evaluating yourself when you're playing a piece, and then scoring yourself regularly. Like listen to a recording and score yourself, just like what your faculty would do if you were playing a jury, or what an audition committee would do if you were playing an audition. They probably wouldn't use a rubric, but that also helps you understand what are the important points that you need to work on while you're practicing this piece. Okay, finally, creating. This is the one that I think we are the most familiar with. Putting your product in the spotlight, distribute your recording, perform and plan to perform multiple times. I think that's important as well, like not just having one performance experience, but try to find multiple performance experiences. One other thing you can do, this might be a little more crazy, but for some folks out there, remember those doodles and pictures that we drew back in step 3 of application? Like pull those out and create a digital slideshow that accompanies your performance. And maybe that's something that you release on your YouTube channel or something. Like it's just some way to kind of tie together the work that you did. Um, I love to doodle and I love to color. So that's my coloring with like nice colored pencils, not like Crayolas. Oh, nothing wrong with Crayola. Crayola's fine. But anyway, I love to tie the things together that I love, and find some way to just like really frame the performance and the work that you did. Also knowing that like when you come back to a piece of music, that you can go through this entire process all over again and come out with like a very different and completely new product. So that's something to remember as well. So for a lot of educators, the Bloom's taxonomy is something they've been seeing since they were 18 years old, but maybe for some performance students or otherwise, this might be the first time that you've seen the Bloom's taxonomy, and just know that like you can take this and apply it this afternoon to your practice session. Like it doesn't have to be something that you have to study and learn more about. It's something that you can do right now that will improve really the organization and structure and outcomes of your practice session. Okay. And this is, I kind of got this idea from Tom Hooton. So he was telling this story in his masterclass about how he sets a timer on his phone and he practices for 2 minutes and then he takes a 1 minute break. And I was like, I don't know how you get anything done in your practice session. And I remembered thinking like that's the craziest thing I have ever heard in my life. But it's not at all. What is crazy about it is the scale that he uses. He does 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. And I just thought, what are you can't even get really into like the level of flow in 2 minutes, but you can, you totally can. And that little reward that you know that's coming up makes you a little more committed to doing what you're doing in that moment, playing really in present tense. So this is an academic application that I'm applying to practice. So I wrote the tentative schedule in percentages because depending on how much time you have to practice, you might want to do this cycle multiple times through, or you might want to do one big cycle. Like if you're doing your warm up in the morning and you have like an hour in the morning and then you have 2 half hours later in the day, you would want to break this schedule up different ways, but kind of leave the percentages the same. So, in your preview, review, you would think about what you did in your last practice session and think about what goals you have for this practice session. I would recommend writing them down in your practice journal. Then the intense part is the study part. That's going to be the biggest bulk of what you're doing in your practice session. You need to get any distractions out of the way. Like turn your face away from the window or away from the door. Remove everything else from your music stand. So it's just the music that you're working on. You might even want to pull your tuner and metronome up ahead of time so that you're not distracted. Put your phone in airplane mode or just don't even have it on at all if you don't need it. This is also time to ask yourself like the tough questions. You know, horn players, we miss notes once in a while. And yeah, no, we don't. But if you miss a note, constantly be evaluating, did I miss that note from above or did I miss that note from below? Because that failure, that mistake is a teachable moment. So you're really super analyzing what you're doing and you're like really into yourself. Where are you rushing? Do you keep missing the same note? Like, can you figure out why? I also like to do this trick where like if I'm playing something and I would have my metronome set on 100, so let's say it's giving me one beat per measure or whatever, and I set my metronome at 50 instead, it's only giving me one beat every 2 bars. And so it's checking in with you a little less often, but you to like know when it's coming because there's more space in between. So that's a good thing I use to kind of check my rhythm, or at least my steady tempo when I'm working on that. Can you sing all of the leaps in your music? Can you play it all slurred? Can you play it all articulated? And could you play it without using the music at all? And I'm not advocating that you have to memorize everything, but have you tried? Like maybe you should. When you're finished with that really intense study period, reward yourself. leave your practice room. Get on Facebook, post a picture on Instagram, like do some yoga poses, like take a couple of minutes, walk down and get some water, or like just do some jumping jacks, whatever you want to do to give yourself a little reward. Read a news article or watch a YouTube video or something to just reward yourself for the work that you just did. And then assess, like I would also write in this moment too. Did I accomplish my goals for the day? What do I want to focus on in my next practice session? How much time do I think I need to get this done? And it'll just help you for goal setting in your next practice session. Your study cycle is just going to depend on how much time you have and how much you need to learn. So I wouldn't worry about that. You can do multiple study cycles for multiple practice sessions, or multiple study cycles in one practice session. Just depends on what you want. Okay, this is a very quick slide, but I just did this a couple of weeks ago and was totally blown away. I know the concept of learning styles has been like completely debunked, and people are like, it doesn't matter what your learning style is. It's true that it doesn't matter what your learning style is if you don't modify the way that you try to learn to accommodate your learning style. So if you don't know what your learning style was, because I thought that I was a visual/graphic learner for years and years until I took this test a couple weeks ago, I would encourage you all to take the test, and I'm going to have it put up in the chat, the link to where you can go to take this test. It's like 10 questions long. And I learned that I am a kinesthetic learner. So depending on the type of learner you are, you're going to make your own modifications. But a couple of things that I have found help me, and I didn't realize that they were because I was a kinesthetic learner. I just thought I couldn't sit still, was to stand while practicing. And this is something I heard Gail Williams does. Sometimes she has her students stand on one foot while practicing, and or at least running through a particular passage or something. And that's kind of to get your mind a little bit outside of yourself and to focus on something else while you have to play. I like to write my music out. I like to like finger musical passages when I'm not holding my instrument. And I also like to listen to the music that I'm working on while I'm like out exercising or walking. So I find it difficult to just sit and listen to something, but it's much easier for me if I'm walking or even like sitting in a rocking chair while reading helps me. So I've been able to make those figure out those modifications. I didn't realize that it was because of my learning style until recently, but it makes sense to me. And I would encourage you all to find out what kind of learner you are too. Warren, do you know what kind of learner you are?
I don't. I kind of personally, and it doesn't have to get into this, but I I go along a different path. I think we all have things that we excel at in terms of how we learn, and that's where those, if we're looking at a graph, those top goal points are, or pings of certain things. That's what we delve into as like how we learn the best. The best I learn is through hitting all of the points, right? So hitting visual, um, kinetic, and a bunch of different ways to learn. Hitting all points would actually help you uh, really grain in the memory or that whatever you're trying to learn at that point. So um, I I'm more along that line, and that's probably why I don't know exactly what I am, but probably more
You can
visual
be
if I had to guess.
you can be multiple modes as
Yeah,
well. Like you may not have a particular strength in one area as well.
right.
So
So
yeah, like I made my husband take the test too after I did, and he scored like equal in visual and auditory.
yeah,
So yeah, okay. Okay. Your mindset, like where's your brain when you're thinking about improving on your instrument? I just want to take a moment to say I always like to take a minute or two of my playing session, and I call it like the positive affirmation exercise, where it's like a series of whole notes in the middle register where I'm playing, but while I'm playing, I'm thinking about things in my mind, like I like to play the French horn. I enjoy practicing. I appreciate the challenges music offers me. So I just like to take a moment every day to remind myself, like I'm choosing to do this. Like this was my choice. And it kind of helps me with the rest of the work. Plus, I feel like we spend so much time being critical of ourselves in our practice sessions. It's like just good to balance that out a little bit. So I have a book recommendation down here. It's called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. And she talks about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. We hear in music a lot like, oh, that person's just naturally talented and that person's naturally gifted, or like, I'm naturally good at that, but not naturally good at this. You hear that a lot in the horn world with like high range and low range. Oh, I'm like naturally a low horn player. I'm naturally a high horn player. And that is fixed mindset in itself. And you're limiting your own growth by pigeonholing yourself. So I would just encourage you, if you're interested in this, to read it. There's no such thing as fixed mindset, really, because the mind is its primary function is to learn, and it's like science, right? We all learn this. Our brains all learn the same way. It has to do with like neurons connecting in the brain. Like I'm not going to get into that, and I wouldn't anyway because I wouldn't use the right words and I have no idea. But that you really need to approach practicing with your growth mindset. Um, okay, I have one other thing I want to share, and that's a quote from this book from Carol Dweck. For 20 years, my research has shown that the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. It can determine whether you become the person you want to be and whether you accomplish the things you value. Do people with this mindset believe that anyone can be anything? That anyone with proper motivation or education can become Einstein or Beethoven? No, but they believe that a person's true potential is unknown and unknowable, that it's impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion, toil, and training. So just something to keep in mind as you're going through your practice journey and your performance journey. Just be persistent, find good teachers, and recognize that like the word talent maybe doesn't necessarily mean that much. It's really about your mindset. I would also recommend journaling and keeping track of practice sessions over a period of time, because it's going to show you basically your areas of improvement. Sometimes that you might have difficulty like seeing on your own, because for a lot of us, we get a little better and then we plateau, and then we get a little better and then we plateau. So during those plateaus, that's the time to work on the skills you acquired while you were getting better. But during those plateaus, it can also get frustrating because you feel like you're not improving. But that's a good time to go back and look and see, like read, like, oh, last year at this time I was really struggling with, playing low and loud, and now I can like nail Shostakovich 5 to the wall. So it's nice to have that record that you can look back on. And also when you encounter a problem that like you encountered before, you can go back and be like, what did I write about this the last time I was struggling with this that helped me work on this a little bit better? Okay, I'm sorry, Warren. I have been dominating this conversation.
No, that's excellent. The only thing I was going to mention is personally, that's what I have come to. You nailed it on the head in the last like 2 or 3 sentences. So I haven't found it too much benefit to like journaling my practice logs to benefit me in the future. But what I did find is it helped me understand some problems that I'm running into now because of my historical like issues that I had in the past. So I could use some of those strategies to overcome something. So it did end up benefiting me, but it just took a long time to build up like, well, the logs, to be
Yeah.
honest. But
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, I still have some from when I was like 19, and I go back and look at them and I'm like, seriously, Kelly? But I appreciate how authentic I was trying to be when I was 19 years old. Okay, these were just some random thoughts that didn't fit into a slide, and I'm going to go through these really quickly. Okay, leave when you are at home, and let's say if you're all online classes and you practice in the same spot in your house, just leave your instrument out. It's so much easier to just pick it up and play a little bit and set it down when you don't have to go through that mental block of having to take it out of the case. For some reason that feels restrictive. Just leave it out. I leave mine there all the time when I'm not playing it. Keep your practice journal with your music. Find a practice buddy, someone online, someone in your studio, a professional. Create friendly etude challenge groups with friends. I know trumpet players are big on this. Like you guys send each other videos of yourselves playing specific etudes. You have like challenges, and I know wasn't there like money involved at one time.
it got really bad at some point. But I mean, this is a natural drum. I mean, for those who don't know, I am a trumpet player, so that's 100% my experience growing up, and it still to this day is pretty close to how we operate. So yeah.
Well, it's a good way to maintain accountability. If your friend sends you an etude, you have to send it back, right? Try to prepare a piece. If you're a student, try to prepare a piece, like maybe make it a goal one semester that you're going to prepare your jury piece or one piece on your recital without any help from your teacher. Your teacher's not allowed to hear it before you perform it. That's going to force you to go completely through the Bloom's taxonomy on your own and really learn that piece, and think of thoughtful questions to ask your teacher without like just literally flat out asking them for help. Find online tools that make practice more fun. For me, I've found that like you can play like a beatbox or like different kinds of rhythms on my tuner. So I find like when I'm really in a ditch, that's a nice way to help me. Write your practice schedule down. Like I put my practice hours in my Google Calendar. Add it to your calendar so it's like an actual appointment that you have. Try to find where the gaps are in your own learning. I was talking earlier, one gap that I have is that I don't know a lot of music by underrepresented composers. And so that's something I'm working on right now personally. When you perform in your present tense. When you practice in all three tenses: past, present, and future. Always think about what's coming ahead in the music. Try to think about what you just did and being right in the right there, right now as well. And then finally, schedule your very first practice session as early in the day as you are able to do it. And I know for most of us, that's like somewhere after the first cup of coffee. So there's one other thing that I have up here in the corner. It's just a screenshot of this is like a planning software. And if you have, this is like what I've tried to help my students with planning their senior recitals. So like all the steps that you need to do and an approximate timeline for that preparation. And this is a free software. It's a time management software basically, or it can be like group planning if you have a couple of people involved too, but just to help you kind of keep on what tasks you need to do and when they're due when. And it just kind of helps you think about that process as well. And this can be used for auditions as well. What do you need to do? What do you want to accomplish in getting that audition ready for audition day? So I have found things like this to be helpful to me because I always say like, oh yeah, I'm going to plan a mock audition, or yeah, I need to go play for so-and-so. And it's just kind of like something that I know that I need to do, but I never get around to scheduling. So this kind of just keeps me accountable for things like that as well. And then finally, a couple of book recommendations. If you want to learn more about metacognition and how to teach yourself how to learn more effectively, I recommend this book by Dr. Sandra McGuire called Teach Yourself How to Learn. There's another one that's maybe geared a little bit more toward teachers called The Learner-Centered Teaching by Mary Ellen Weimar. And then a link to the Myers-Briggs personality test as well. If you want to find out what kind of personality you have, it's just going to give you a general idea that can help you understand what some of your motivations are and how to stay motivated and how you work with other people in groups. And there's just some good information you can garner from taking a test like that. And then also my email address, if you want to get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you, maybe any feedback or comments that you have or thoughts about some of the things I talked about today. And then if you want to check out the Alloy Horn Quartet or the Alliance Brass Quintet, or I gave Warren a link to a video of my performance of N4A that I was talking about earlier. So that's on YouTube if you would like to watch that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll link everything in the comments. I think we've already started doing that on the quizzes and some of those other things. So fantastic. Great stuff. I learned a lot, and also I hope our viewers did, and I'm sure they found a lot of that really intriguing. What I thought really cool was I just recently, in the last couple of years, got into like time management softwares, which didn't exist when we were in college and doing our practicing. Well, at least for me, wasn't there. So I'm sure I could have written it out and really been diligent about it, but it's something that didn't happen for me up until the last couple of years, where I found very much so that helps me hold myself accountable, like you said, and moreover, I found giving myself like a specific amount of time, like a limited amount of time, because as well as we all do, when we start working on a certain passage for it and a certain amount of time, there's a point where it's not productive, right? So if we give ourselves a certain amount of time, we're like, okay, this is all the time I have designated to this particular activity or this particular phrase or whatever. That was really helpful because you're done. Once you're done, you're done, and you can't work on it until the next block of time where you
Right.
designated for it to happen. So that's helped with many facets of my life recently, and that's also can go towards practicing, and I've done so, and it's great. Yeah, I love the continuity of the entire thing. So wow, you really delivered for our viewers today, Kelly. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's really really great. What I will mention, we come to the close of our session, of course, but that does not mean that some of these tools and stuff will not be available for anyone going forward. We will continue to house this on our Facebook page, but I know sometimes that gets lost. So we actually have a YouTube channel. It's called Buffet Crampon USA Rhapsody Live. You can go to YouTube, just search Rhapsody Live, it should come up. And you can find not only today's webcast, but any of our previous webcasts. And if you subscribe to our channel, you'll find anything coming out in the future. So you'll be right on top of that. Next week, we will be joined with our flute specialist and I'm sorry, it's actually our direct sales manager, Kristen. She will be talking with the Cleveland Orchestra flute section. They'll be going over orchestral section playing, and that is going to be next Thursday, September 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, right here on the Buffet Crampon New York showroom Facebook page. So you can find it there. I'm sure we'll be sharing it on our flute page, our Powell Facebook page, as well as housing it on YouTube afterwards. So again, a lot of tools that Kelly gave you today for practice habits and some efficiency and really, really great things all around. So over delivering and very, very much, we wish you the best, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us today and hope to see
Thank
you.
you, Warren. Thank you for having me. I had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Great. This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone, and we will see you next week.